Call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Kolpak? Here. Pepcorn?
Here.
Turnberg? Here. Strand? Mahoney?
Here. Health. The back-to-school immunization clinics will be held at the Fargo Cass Public Health on August 7th, 14th, 21st, and 27th. During the August 21st and 27th events, Family Healthcare will also offer immunizations from its mobile unit. Library. The August Jigsaw Puzzle Social and Swap is August 17th at 9 a.m. at the Downtown Library. Beginner Yoga for Adults is at 6 p.m. Thursdays through the summer at Carlson Library. We do have a Savannah Greywind proclamation to read here tonight, but Ruth Buffalo is delayed by the weather. So I'll ask the commission if it's okay if I could read that to her if she comes a little later. We'll do it after one of our agenda items, if that's okay. Okay. We have two short videos to watch this evening. The first is from July 22nd through the 28th, when Fargo, West Fargo, Moorhead, Dilworth, and Horace came together to celebrate Navy Week, and we are fortunate to have visitors from the USS North Dakota. The Fargo metro area was so proud to host Navy Week, which accumulated in the Blue Angels performance and the Fargo Air Show. And finally, the water tower number 1 was demolished last week. It was Fargo's first water tower constructed in the 1940s. The demolition was part of the process, fully utilizing the new Fargo Mega Tower. We'll take a look at both videos. Interesting. Is there a motion to approve the order of agenda amending items 45, motion to read, waive requirement to receive and file an ordinance 1 week prior to the first reading, and first reading of the ordinance enactment Article 10-14 of Chapter 10 of the Fargo Municipal Code relating to camping on public property? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions?
Mayor, would you explain the first reading? I couldn't quite catch what that was.
So basically tonight, that article 45 would be just a receive and file, and then the first reading would be next meeting, and then you would have a second reading 2 weeks from that, so that'd be a month before it was enacted. What this allows us to do is have the first reading tonight, if you agree, and changes can be made in 2 weeks. We will put up on the motion, John, the difference of the two. Nancy has it written out, the difference as far as the commission. This is advertised as a public hearing tonight, so people do know it's on the agenda, so they would be able to talk to present agenda as we have it, and it would be available as next week as well.
I'm opposed to accelerating it.
Okay. I guess you could vote no then.
I'll vote no then.
Okay. All those, well, maybe I should do a roll call vote then. Yep. Roll call vote, please.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Turnberg?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
No.
Strand?
No.
Mahoney?
Aye. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the July 22nd regular meeting?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 38?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Kolpak? Aye. Turnberg?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Yes. Regular agenda, recommend adopt the resolution authorizing sale of property west of the landfill. Jim Gilmore to explain.
Thank you. First, I want to call attention to the new description that we sent out. There was a small piece of property here we hadn't included in that long description, and that would be sold along with the rest of this property. What tonight really is to begin the formal process to sell this land west of the landfill. I've been working with Solid Waste, Public Works, and Administration and kind of coordinating how best to sell this property. Your utility committee actually 2 years ago identified this as surplus land and something that would no longer be needed for a landfill. It was acquired in 1995 with the idea of expanding the landfill to the west. The reason it really doesn't work anymore is several reasons. There are two pipelines that crisscross the property, making it difficult to use for a landfill for those to stay in place. Secondly, it's not an ideal size. They'd really like something a little bit bigger. And then finally, it's in West Fargo, and West Fargo has an ordinance that says we can't have landfills in their cities, so that kind of put an end to that idea. There's 85 acres. If we can go to the next image. What do we have? This is the, and so what we would do is sell 61 of the 85 acres. What would be retained is this area kind of north and south along the edge of the landfill. We have monitoring wells in there that we need to maintain to see if there's any leakage from the existing landfill. And then this area up here is the location of the snow dump. And while the long-term plan is to move that somewhere else, in the meantime, that will need to be retained and used as a snow dump. Well, we've been talking to some commercial realtors about the value of the property. We're continuing that process. And so really the first step tonight is to adopt that resolution saying that it's no longer needed for public purposes and direct staff to prepare some RFPs so we could list this property. We don't think trying to have an auction and sell it immediately is probably the best way because it's such a large piece of property and has fairly high value. And so if you want to pass that resolution, we would bring back RFPs to you to review. We distribute those to realtors and try to get that done in September. And then maybe ideally by the end of October, list the property for sale. We'll have some consultation with you on what the listing price should be. Some of that needs to be probably done in executive session so you don't tip your hand on what you think the price should be. Be happy to answer any questions. If not, the recommendation is to adopt that resolution.
Any questions, Jim? Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Colpack? Aye. Strand?
Yes.
Turnberg?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. So we're ahead of time on the 5:15. I could go to item 42, Fargodome remodeling project. You have a letter of recommendation from the Fargodome Authority. You have a recommendation to adopt resolution amendment to Home Rule Charter for sales, use, and gross receipts tax, and to approve the ballot language for the November 5th election. Dave Supas, if you want to come up with your speakers, go to, oh, here he is. Okay, to explain.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners, Mayor, for having us. On behalf of the Fargodome, I just want to take a step back and go to December of 2013 or 2023 when we went forward with our first attempt at the quarter-cent sales tax for 20 years for the Fargodome renovation improvements. We came a bit short. That was in connection with the convention center. We came a bit short at 52% of the vote voted for. We needed 60%. So from that period to where we are now, we went back and took a look, hired Prime 46 to do a scientific survey with registered voters in Fargo to better understand where we are with this project. That information was available and presented at the July 8th meeting, which many members were here at that point, or people were here at that point. What we learned from that at the July 8th meeting was that the people that were surveyed were likely to vote, or were going to vote, or likely to vote in the next upcoming election. And we found from that information that 56% of the people surveyed were in favor of the Fargodome in terms of the renovation, and that was aided with information on what the renovation improvements would bring to the Fargodome. That ramped up to 60%. So from that information, we went back to the drawing board and felt comfortable to take another run at this, adjust a few things from original plans, take a look at seating, take a look at some LED bordage that would be added into to the new plan, and have come forth at this point right now thinking that we have a good plan in terms of the renovation and improvement side of things. The only other comment I wanted to make is the other thing from that scientific study that we had is that 88% of the respondents from that survey thought the Fargodome was a good asset for the city of Fargo. So that's a strong majority that's out there. So where we sit at this point right now, the right one. What we're looking at specifically is just the Fargodome renovation. We're not looking at the convention center at this time right now. And the way we went through the scientific study, went through the study on that side of things, concluded that focusing at the Fargodome, getting the renovation is the best interest of the Fargodome and the Fargodome Authority right now. The plan priorities right now are to improve, enhance the accessibility. The definition of accessibility is also brings in the conversation of ADA and circulation, enhance the patron's experience, and create operational efficiencies, which we believe that the plan that we have right now would fit the mold for that. The project fund sources is the Fargodome has a permanent fund. We would plan to extract $30 million out of that and use that towards the project. And in conjunction with that, requesting the city to approve to allow us to put on the ballot in November a quarter-cent sales tax for a duration of 20 years. And the use of the funds would be for the remodel of the Fargodome, future capital improvements, and then to reaccumulate the permanent fund for future operations. The key components, the comprehensive plan to address multiple priorities with the patron's experience, infuse existing Fargodome funds, sales tax allows for visitor contribution. We'd phase in the construction. The venue would remain open. There would be football games, concerts, and all those other events that go on there. We just have to work around that. And the parking would be net neutral to the Fargodome as a whole. At this point right now, I'd like to call on Matt Larson from NDSU, the athletic director. They are the primary tenant of the Fargodome for a few comments.
Thanks, David. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Commission, thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight. As Dave said, my name is Matt Larson. I'm the Director of Athletics at NDSU and have served in that role for the last 10 years. And as the primary tenant of the Fargodome, both NDSU and primarily NDSU football, just felt compelled to come here tonight and show my support for this project and encourage the commission to put it on the ballot this coming November. Over the course of the last 30 years, Bison football, Bison Nation, the city of Fargo has enjoyed a lot of wonderful moments in the Fargodome. We've been fortunate over the years to have ESPN televised games, and nationally people have seen what Fargo has to offer in a lot of really unique ways. And it truly has become, for us, the best home field advantage in all of college football and an unbelievable venue. But for me, this renovation is a lot more than just Bison football. In my 10 years here, I've brought my children to the circus, monster trucks. We've been to high school championships, concerts, pancake breakfast, craft fairs, rib fest, and the list goes on and on. So this facility has served our community on so many levels over those 30 years. But a lot has changed in 30 years. A lot. Technology, fan amenities, building codes, concessions, overall fan spectator experience. People just don't consume games and events and concerts the way they did 30 years ago. They expect more. They want better. So this renovation is the answer. It addresses these expectations and raises the Fargodome to the level our fans and community members want. From better accessibility to better technology and access, improved concessions and increased points of sale, more restrooms, wider concourses, and several premium areas. So this is a credible opportunity for the city to continue serving a growing community, its residents, families, and spectators across the region. So thank you very much and appreciate your time.
Before we get to any motions, we'd open it up for questions, obviously, from the commission.
Anybody have any questions about the motion? Dave, you have anybody else who wants to speak to the favor?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll
second.
Oh, Michelle.
Discussion? Mr. Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. And, in my interpretation of our role here, we've had people reaching out to us with pros and cons of whether they like this or don't like it, want us to go for it or not go for it. And in my opinion, our role is to put it to the people. It isn't to sit up here today and debate the nuances of the proposal and to get into the weeds. It's to let the people have the opportunity to decide, and you've asked us to do that, and I think that's a fair request. So I don't know where the people will go on these votes, but we serve the people.
And this first motion is just to put it on the ballot on November 5th, 2024. So we'll have two more motions after this.
Okay. And I'd say it's long overdue. I mean, the Civic Center is an example of what happens when things mothball, and the Fargodome needs to expand and make it something that's a place where people want to come and go. I think the difficulty in our community is that everybody wants the city of Fargo to be a city of destination, and we have to make this Fargodome be that for us. So it's one of those things I truly think that needs to be done. I think you also talked about changing seating, Wi-Fi, doing some different things, enhancing the experience for the fan that comes into that place. So I think that also would be greatly appreciated for anybody who attends a concert or anything else that they go to, is enhance experience. We'll really make it something in which we can compete successfully with the cities and our Grand Forks or Sioux Falls. So motion second, roll call, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Turnberg?
Aye.
Colpack? Aye. Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. What is your second motion?
Second motion is to introduce and adopt the resolution that is part of your packet to put the 1/4 of sales tax in our home rule charter.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Colpack? Aye. Turnberg?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Aye. And next one, right?
Yep, the final motion is just to approve the ballot language that will go on November 5th, 2024's ballot.
Do you have a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
We're going to have a long meeting tonight if we have reluctant seconds. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Kolpak? Aye. Strand?
Yes.
Turnberg?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see that Ruth Buffalo has made it, and so we could get ready to the proclamation. John Strand, do you want to stand and go down with Ruth while I read the proclamation, please? John is our liaison to the Native American Commission. So this City of Fargo Office of the Mayor proclamation, whereas Savannah Greywind was born August 9th, 1995, and she lived and worked in Fargo. And whereas Savannah's life and tragic death call attention to the need for missing and murdered Indigenous women's awareness and justice initiatives. And whereas, according to the U.S. Department of Justice, Indigenous women are murdered at a rate of 10 times the national average at any other race per capita, and the number of missing and murdered Indigenous women in the U.S. is impossible to calculate due to missing data. And whereas the City of Fargo has joined in solidarity with Canada, where for more than 20 years there have been annual marches, events, and awareness-raising endeavors to spur the awareness of the North Dakota missing and murdered Indigenous women. And whereas Savannah's date of birth designated as Savannah Greywind Day in celebration of the life she lived. And whereas such a designation to be an honor in Savannah's life and the life of her surviving child rather than a matter of her death. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Dr. Tim Mahoney, Mayor of Fargo, do hereby proclaim August 9th to be Savannah Greywind Day in the City of Fargo and call upon the citizens to observe this day in recognition of fallen Indigenous women with appropriate awareness and programs activities. Thank you.
Matzagidodz, thank you so much, the mayor and the city of Fargo, Commissioner Strand, the Fargo Native American Commission and community members. This was brought to our attention of having a Savannah's Day. It was brought to our attention by Savannah's family last summer because Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians close to the Canadian border that's where they're located, for those that aren't aware, but their tribal council had enacted a Savannah's Day a year ago, and so Savannah's mom and dad approached us and asked us if we could do something here in Fargo. So we got to work on it. A year ago, my daughter had presented at that very podium to the Fargo Native American Commission, proposing the idea, and it took, some perseverance, and so we're thankful that you are able to acknowledge Savannah and her family and the countless others, because this is a crisis, and we need everybody's help to continue to make sure that our daughters, our sons, our relatives are safe. So, Matzagidodz, thank you in the Hidatsa language.
Thank you very much appreciate it. Glad we could honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll go to public hearing 40. Hearing to consider renewal plan and developer agreement with the JS2L partners, the Tax Increment Finance District 2024-01, 600 block of 4th Street North, and continued from 6:10, 6:24, 7:08, and 7:22 regular meetings. Jim Gilmore to explain.
This agreement and plan is consistent with the policy you had adopted earlier this year. This renewal plan is sort of a two-phase approach where the first phase is to demolish all the properties and then give the developer time to see if they need a rezoning or just give some extra time to put together their financing plan. The location is just north of the downtown. The city hall is over here, and it's up near the Sanford campus. When we look at the land use, the zoning of the site, the west half is zoned downtown mixed use. The right side, or the eastern edge, is zoned multifamily, except for a parking lot on the southeast corner that's zoned commercial. These are some photos of the property, and all the property on the block is vacant at this time. This is a former service station. There's kind of older houses on the east side that they're also vacant and quite old and have signs of blight and deterioration. We look at there's another photo here, and then we look at the land use plan of the downtown. The site would be right here. The long-term plan is for residential, and that's what the developer has in mind. Again, we don't have the specifics yet. We look at the core neighborhood plan. It's actually not in the core neighborhood. It's right off the core neighborhood. Let's see, it'd be this site right here. The core neighborhood plan calls for the property to the east to be multifamily residential in the future. So that seems consistent with this redevelopment. The tax increment financing assistance would be for the cost of the value of the buildings, a little over $1 million, and the cost of demolition, a little over $600,000 is expected to be, plus some city administration costs. Again, right now the property is worth about, I think, $1.5 million. And in the future, the development could be anywhere from 10 to 30 million, depending on the density that would go in there. And if so, that would increase the property taxes to about $400,000 a year. And this would be limited to a 5-year time period. They could still apply for a Renaissance zone, so they could do a 5-year Renaissance zone and still receive tax increment financing on in the last 5 years. The Planning Commission reviewed the renewal plan and found it consistent with the Go 2030 Comprehensive Plan, and your Economic Development Incentives Committee is recommending approval. We'll have a public hearing here. The developers of the property are Stephen and John Linkstead. Stephen is here if you have any questions for the developer. If not, the recommended motion will be to adopt that renewal plan and the developer agreement, with the hopes that the demolition would happen this fall. The buildings have been kind of a nuisance for the police department. They get calls for squatters moving into the building, and it's just not a safe thing to have. And rather than wait until they know exactly what they're going to do, this plan would accelerate that demolition and then give them more time to put their plan together. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this renewal plan? Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this plan? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Kolpak? Aye. Strand?
Yes.
Turnberg?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 41, YWCA addition and presentation edition. Is approval recommended by the Planning Commission on 7/2/24. It's a zoning change from multi-dwelling residential to an SR single residential, public and institutional. First reading rezoning ordinance, the YWCA edition, and the first reading of the rezoning ordinance presentation edition. Donald Kress to explain.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Kress of the Department of Planning and Development. I'll be presenting this item, which includes an ordinance prepared by the City Attorney's Office. As the mayor stated, item 41 is the YWCA and Presentation Edition. These are two different subdivisions located here. This is University Drive South. On the north boundary is 30th Avenue South, and the south boundary is 32nd Avenue South. This property here is not included in the zone change. Here's a close-up of the area. You see it also includes areas that are not developed along the river. The proposal here is to, we'll take a look at the zoning in a minute. Here's some site photos here, just looking on the different property frontages here, 30th Avenue South, 32nd Avenue South. This is where 30th turns into 11th Street. This is a building here that will eventually be demolished as part of the overall plan for this property. The parking will remain, and then when you go farther to the east, the property is undeveloped along the Red River there, so you can see the river peeking through the trees there. The current zoning, is stated in the introduction, is MR1 and MR2 multi-dwelling and SR2 single dwelling. This is all proposed to be changed to PI, public and institutional, and this is part of an overall institutional master plan, which was approved by the Planning Commission on July 2nd. Public and institutional zoning is required for an institutional master plan. It's designed for large areas like this, campus-like settings, to be able to plan development over a long term without having to keep going back and changing your building permits all the time. The Planning Commission is the approving body for the institutional master plan, but their approval is contingent on your commission approving this zone change to PI. This area in the outlined in black shows what the zone change is going to be. This area will all be PI if your commission approves this. The area of the blue is the institutional master plan, which again, your commission is not addressing tonight, but just wanted to show you the difference in locations there. The applicant, Aaron Prochnow, who is the CEO of the YWCA, is with us this evening and may wish to address the commission. The Planning Commission's motion is stated in the staff report and shown on the screen. This concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, commissioners.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to the commission in regards to this new addition zoning? I didn't think you could resist. The YWCA keeps expanding. A great idea, great things happening.
Well, I sure hope so. Thank you, Mayor Mahoney, members of the commission. My name's Erin Prochnow. I'm the CEO of YWCA Cass Clay. What Donald Kress was just talking about is the property located on South University Drive. That includes our emergency shelter, where we've been proud to be neighbors of this community for 20 years at that location, but have been offering emergency shelter dating back to 1978. YWCA itself has been in the community serving women and children since 1906. So prior to building our emergency shelter on South University Drive, partnership existed with the Sisters of the Presentation. For several years, we have been partnering with them to provide affordable and supportive housing. The sisters approached me about acquiring the former Sacred Heart Convent location that we purchased and renovated in 2022 and invested $8.3 million to create Lantern Light, 23 units of supportive housing for women and children escaping violence and homelessness across our community. Just last year, we purchased the two buildings kind of in the middle of your screen, what you see. We named those Cove Lane. We've invested $3 million over the last year, and just last week moved 12 families into those two locations. The reason we're here this evening really is to do this public institutional application because the next property that we have a purchase agreement in place with the Sisters of the Presentation to acquire is the property to the furthest right on your screen that currently is the home of Beyond Boundaries Physical Therapy, who are vacating at the end of the year. We'd like to acquire that property, raise the building, and create more supportive and affordable housing for women and children. In the most recent statewide needs assessment, it was indicated that Cass County needs over 6,500 new units of housing, which 2,000 of those they've identified as low to moderate income supportive housing needs. The need in our community is significant. YWCA has been responding to the need, serving women and children since 1906. We'd like to continue to do that, and I'm glad to answer any questions you have about our plan.
Any questions of the commission?
I have a comment, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Kolpak.
I just want to commend the YWCA on this project. I know you bring continued expertise and determination to these complex solutions for housing, and our community is better for it, so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kolpak.
Anybody else in the public want to comment to this project? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please. Thanks, Aaron.
Kolpeck,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Turnberg,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Item 43, recommendation to adopt resolution amending the home rule charter to place measure on the ballot, November 5th ballot to allow for additional 3% city lodging tax. Charlie Johnson to explain.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioners. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm here to respectfully request that you approve the resolution in your packet for the November 5, 2024 general election ballot. This resolution calls for a vote on adding an additional 3% lodging tax to the City of Fargo's existing 3% for a period of 25 years for the purpose of building a much-needed conference space somewhere in the City of Fargo. As a point of clarification, by lodging tax, we are referring specifically to a hotel motel tax or other short-term rentals such as a bed and breakfast. But this is a hotel motel tax, not a tax on anyone's private lodging or home, just to be sure people understand that. This measure specifically does not call for a particular project. Instead, it says that if passed, commissioners would establish a committee to do a request for proposal process seeking a public-private partnership for the project. The resolution further states that if passed, the city would not begin collecting the new hotel motel tax until and unless a project was identified and approved by the City Commission. I believe this process, if approved by voters, would allow the city to attract and review a variety of proposals for new conference space that would likely include, at the very least, an attached hotel. I was, of course, aware that the Fargodome Authority would be here at this meeting asking you to put a question on the ballot seeking approval of their quarter-cent 20-year sales tax for renovation and expansion of the Fargodome. I assure you the board and staff of the Visit Fargo Moorhead support that measure as well. We see this additional hotel motel tax as a painless way for the citizens of Fargo to build such a facility, as the supporting tax, the tax supporting it will be paid almost entirely by visitors to the community. It's a tax, but it really qualifies as a user fee, and you'll probably hear me say that a lot in the next weeks to come. I cannot stress this enough. If voters approve this project, it'll be paid for almost entirely by people who do not live here. Once it's in operation, however, then it will lead to increased visitation to the community by visitors who will spend their money here and lift our local economy. So again, it's really a user fee masquerading as a tax, and somewhere in the high 90% range of it will be paid for by visitors to our community. I do think it's important to know that people who represent the hospitality industry understand and support this plan, and I've asked three of those people to just say a few words to you, beginning with our Visit Fargo Moorhead Board Vice Chair, Claire Hughes, who also happens to be the General Manager of the Clubhouse Hotel and Suites in Fargo. Claire?
I'm vertically challenged, sorry.
I got it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay. Good evening, all. Thank you for having us, and thank you, Charlie. As he said, my name's Claire Hughes. I'm the general manager of the Clubhouse Hotel and Suites. We are a property that I would say is similar to the majority in the Fargo Moorhead area. I've got 100 rooms, just over 2,000 square feet of meeting space, and I am here to support this resolution measure. As Charlie said, it is virtually the most painless way for us to make this convention center happen. A convention center that I do believe very strongly that the community needs. From a hotel context, we thrive on compression in the market. So being able to bring in larger groups. Currently, we do a lot with sports, which is great. However, they are primarily more weekend driven. So to have more weekday would be great. That in turn, as Charlie said, does bring more spending to the community overall. It makes our revenues grow, which we like, which increases more sales tax and spending in the community overall. I also think that it would be able to increase Fargo's overall branding to be able to bring in more more groups. We have sister properties in Sioux Falls as well as the Rochester Market who are able to host properties that I know we could do better. So I had, I think that was I think my larger points, and I'll stop talking now. Thank you again for having us.
Thanks, Claire. I've also asked Mike Preckle, General Manager of the Fargo Holiday Inn, to share a few words for us. Mike is also a former board member of Visit Fargo Moorhead.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. Mike Preckle, General Manager of Fargo Holiday Inn. I've been in that position for a little over 14 years. Also a member of the board, as Charlie mentioned. A member of the exploratory committee that we had years ago that went out to other communities to explore the diversion, performing arts center, as well as convention centers, and as well as a member of the current convention center committee. I have past experiences from a previous market, Kansas City. Moving up to that market, the hotel was already built, and in that time, they decided to build a convention center. Through that time, there was a lot of nervousness, especially from larger convention hotels, for fear of losing some of that business. As a large hotel, convention hotel, I can say from that experience that there was a brief moment of pain in that, about 1.5 years to 2 years, as the convention center got up and ramped up. We saw those people that were experiencing our convention, or our space before, move over to the convention center. And then eventually, as Claire mentioned, through compression, through new experiences, people started to come back. And new people were able to come into our buildings. It was overall a very good experience for the community. It also brought outside businesses, attractions, created jobs, and it really promoted the overall hospitality industry in a positive light. I think the opportunity here is great, as they've both mentioned. This is a tax that does not impact our residents whatsoever. Maybe slightly if you're bringing a guest to town, but otherwise not that much. I think the opportunity is there. We've waited quite a while to have this opportunity in our hands, and I think now's the time to strike. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. And once more, finally, I would like to invite Dan Herder, owner of Great Plains Hospitality, here as a representative of the broader hospitality community. Dan is responsible for Chef's Table, Marge's Diner, the Boiler Room, and a few others. Dan, thank you for coming.
Hi, everyone. As you said, my name is Dan Herder. I am the owner of the Boiler Room and Marge's Diner downtown. And then we also have a few catering brands, Chef's Table Catering and Urban Foods, and also Brew Catering. It's new this year, but I have kind of the unique perspective of working with some of these groups that we're talking about that potentially will be utilizing a convention center. From that catering perspective, we see quite a few of them that come through the venues that we do have in our area: Sanctuary downtown, Fargo Theater, Armory in West Fargo, Armory in Moorhead, Brewhalla, west of downtown. And every single one of those, when there is an event happening in one of those facilities, we feel it. Sometimes it's a small impact, sometimes it's a large impact. When there's a concert at the Dome, we can almost guarantee that our business will spike. TEDx at the Civic Center, it doesn't get used often, but that's a great influx of business for downtown restaurants. Of course, as a downtown business, I'm an advocate for getting a convention center as close to downtown as possible, but I do believe that no matter where it is in town, that it will impact restaurants across the board. And so I'm an advocate for it, whether that does end up closer to my backyard or further away. I think that the rising tide does indeed lift all boats, or something like that. So that's all I have. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan, Mike, and Claire. I appreciate that. We won't take any more of your time. I didn't spend a lot of time because I've talked about it before, about how valuable it can be to the community to bring new visitors to town. And I've told you, of course, probably ad nauseum, as some of you would say, that we can't compete with our other regional cities for convention space, such as Bismarck, Grand Forks. Sioux Falls was mentioned. I can throw St. Cloud, Rochester, and Duluth into that, and could keep going from there. So we really could improve the number of business-related meetings that we get to bring to town if we have this facility. So I would hope that you would approve this resolution, perhaps amending it to include reference to hotel motel tax, not just lodging tax. And I would stand for any questions.
Can we have the motion put up, please?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second with that amendment that we add hotel motel, if that's okay, Commissioner Pepcorn.
Does somebody have the motion? It's coming, just so the public can see it. Any discussion? Commissioner Strand.
Thank you. Charlie, a couple things.
Yes.
Help me understand the 50% versus 60% both voting thresholds, and so the public knows where this is, if it's different, how so?
We were advised by the city attorney's office that because it is not specifically a sales tax, but is instead a hotel motel lodging tax, that it was not subject to the 60% requirement. So that the lodging tax separated out would need only 50% in this case.
And my next question is, help me understand the role the city will have going forward if the electors decide that they want this to pass. What's the city commission's role and responsibilities after that?
Based on this resolution, the city commission would establish a committee to run this request for proposal process, to seek proposals from developers. I would assume it would be a 90 or 120-day period to be determined, and then review those proposals and bring recommendations back to the city commission. And of course, the city commission's ultimate role, as you know, would be to approve whichever project rises to the top.
And continuing, will the city own this convention center, or who will own it?
I think that, well, the city would have ownership of the building, I would assume. It depends on where it ends up being built. That's where the public-private partnership question comes in. And I think the different proposals that come forward might all be a little different in that regard. But obviously, the city would have ownership of the public part of the building. That's the way I would see it anyway.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Turnberg?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Number 44, construction update. Tom Knockbus. Tom, I'm sorry they don't want to see your construction update.
Yeah, I
All
can't
of us
believe
been
it.
bothered by it, but apparently that
Not
lacked the
offended.
interest of the group, so.
Well, I'll get going. It's been a little bit since I've been here to provide an update of our engineering CIP construction projects. First off, no safety incidents have occurred on any of our projects. I always like to include this just where our residents can find more information. Fargostreets.com is a great place, but we do have regular postings on other social media sites. We do have a few projects that have completed already. I'm sure a lot of people in South Fargo have been happy to see 42nd Street overpass open last week. Some smaller projects, First Avenue South between 4th Street and 7th Street, and then some citywide projects doing crack fill and seal coat have also completed. Starting in on our rehab and reconstruction projects, looking first at 7th Street North. So the 2 blocks that you see in green, those are complete. The 4 various blocks that you see in orange, underground is complete on those. They just worked on paving last week on 3 of those 4. On 4A, which is the northernmost orange block there, they're currently working on the installation of underground utilities. And then the final phase, kind of shown in that blue color, 4B on 10th Avenue, is likely to start later this week or early next week, kind of depending on how the weather goes the remainder of this week. On NP Avenue, currently working on the final portion of underground utilities on 8th Street. Here's an image here of storm sewer installation. Also working on the roadway paving. Last Friday, they had their first pour out there near the intersection of NP Avenue and 8th Street. And this image just shows all the activity that's going on out there. Both Excel is working on site to relocate gas and do some electrical utility work. And then, of course, our contractor has a lot of work going on there too. So it's a very confined site. Going to 9th Street South, between 13th Avenue and 9th Avenue South, you can see the majority of this project is complete. Everything in green is complete. Contractors currently working on the roadway paving scope of work in the 2 orange blocks you see there. Underground is complete. They're working on the roadway prep. Woodcrest Drive North, Phase 1 is complete. Contractor's currently working on underground utilities in Phase 2. And then again, later this week or early next week, they anticipate starting on removals in Phase 3. 32nd Avenue South, contractor's currently working in Phase 2, which is on 32nd Avenue between 42nd and 45th. They're working on underground utilities and roadway surfacing. Happy to say the intersection of 32nd Avenue and 45th Street, as of last Thursday, both the northbound and southbound traffic is open on 45th Street. However, eastbound traffic on 32nd Avenue has continued to be detoured and will be for about another 2.5 weeks while crews work on paving the eastbound driving lanes between 44th and 45th. Here's an image from that intersection, kind of looking to the northwest, showing that that is open for north-south traffic. Some other various projects throughout town. 13.5 Street underground is complete. That's just a one block project. They're currently working on the roadway surfacing. 1st Street North, that project was split into 2 phases. First phase, which is about half the project, is complete, and the contractor is currently working on installing underground utilities in the north phase. Asphalt mill and overlay, quite a few areas throughout town, and contractors working on various activities depending on which area they're in. It could range from being complete to doing curb and gutter, mud jacking and replacement, or resurfacing the asphalt roadway. Some more rehab recon projects, 39th Street, so kind of south of West Acres Mall, working on a roadway reconstruction Phase 1 there. And then asphalt wear core, similar to the mill and overlay, contractors working in multiple phases across the city. 40th Avenue South Water Main, contractor is working out there right at the Milwaukee Trail. We had a water main break there that the contractor will be starting this week. And then multiple citywide projects like sidewalk repair, traffic signal maintenance, and pavement marking replacement happening. As for new development, 52nd Avenue underground is complete. The contractor is working on roadway paving and final grading on both sides of the Cheyenne River. This project is expected to complete here in the next few weeks, which will be very welcome from our Southside residents. This image, this drone image, is a couple weeks old. And so a lot of the gaps that you're seeing in the concrete pavement have been filled in. And again, the contractor's anticipating completing this in the next few weeks. Another new development project up north, Veterans Industrial Park, currently working on installing underground and roadway grading. And here again is just an image of the installation of storm sewer. 45th Street, if you recall, paving 45th Street from 19th Avenue North to 32nd Avenue North. Most of the concrete pavement is in, most of the main line, and most of the curb and gutter has been hung on that concrete pavement. A couple other new development projects, 46th Avenue North, just east of Amazon. Underground is complete, and they're currently working on the roadway paving. Alexander Drive, which would be northwest corner of I-29 and 52nd Avenue South. Working on installing pavement, and we'll be working on final grading soon. This is a shared use project that we're installing a new shared use path just west of the water reclamation facility. So the contractor has started to strip topsoil and prep for that concrete path. A couple flood risk projects, flood risk management projects, sorry. Storm sewer lift station 4748 near 38th Street and Drain 27. All the structures are poured at this point. They still have to put the pumps and things like that into one of the structures, and then they have just some final miscellaneous items. And then up north near Trollwood Park, working on placing the steel and pouring the structure walls on those 2 lift stations. We do have a couple more new development projects we anticipate starting up soon. One, Dakota Commerce Center North Edition, which is just north of Amazon, and then Selkirk Place, which is a new residential development just east of the interstate, south of 64th Avenue, should be starting up next week. And with that, happy to answer any questions about our construction projects.
Any questions of Tom, Mr. Strand?
Thank you, Thomas. I maybe missed it. Any injuries or accidents?
No, there has not been.
And my last thought is, could we, when that construction season is going, could we have this monthly?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? It's nice they're getting this correction done in 30 seconds. That's taken a while. So we appreciate it, Tom. Thank you. Item 45, receive and file ordinance enacting Article 1014, Chapter 10 Fargo Municipal Code relating to camping on public property. Brenda daring to explain with Nancy Morris. And we do have two speakers that will speak to this agenda. We'll have staff explain first, have the agenda, people want to speak, and then it will be discussed by the commission.
Do you want me to start? Okay. So at the beginning of the meeting, there was a motion to amend the agenda and to amend the item. And so what the amendment was for is to waive the requirement to receive and file the ordinance 1 week prior to the first reading, and that this be the first reading. So that's the motion that you're seeing today. What this does, and I don't know, do you want to talk about this, Nancy, or do you want me to?
You can set this up, but, so the question was, presented on with my letter was to receive and file the ordinance and place it on for first reading. There was a request to consider waiving the receive and file, which is a separate motion that could be heard. To waive the receive and file, it requires a 2/3 vote, so that would be 4 of 5 of your member, and then to put it on for first reading. So if you could do the waive, receive, and file and first reading as one motion, and then that would resolve the timing issue. What Brenda has before you is the timing as it was presented in my letter to you and the expedited motion process.
The only issue why we put on this way, Commissioner Strand, is because there are a lot of people have been getting public comments that we want to get rid of camping. And if you want to get it done before September, if you expedite the process, it's quicker. We didn't have a lot of debate today at the afternoon meeting, so I was not aware that there were a lot of people who didn't want to do that. The commission can do whatever they want. If you want to do the standard process or you want to expedite it. I've just been getting a lot of emails of this particular issue. I have a lot of people on bike paths feel that are uncomfortable and would like us to do something sooner than later. But it's really up to the commission what they want to do. Commissioner Strand.
And Mayor, I agree. I think that's a separate motion. We should still entertain the motion, the amendment you added to the approval of the agenda isn't the proper place to change the nature of a motion. And that changed it from receive and file to this waiving the first reading. That's a major change. So I stand by my timing. I'd like to have the public and the...
We are advised by the attorney to do that.
I disagree if that's our... Help me understand. That's a separate motion we still need to address, not as part of approving the agenda.
Well, the changing of the agenda is to give notice that the motion is different than what was presented in the documents.
Those amendments should be presented when we're discussing the topic, not at the agenda approval at the beginning of a meeting.
It could be done at either, and the decision was made to present it as a change to the agenda. And again, I think it's giving notice that there is an intention to change the motion. Now, again, the motion needs to be heard on receive and file and first reading.
The commission can decide to do opposite, John, so there's nothing, the commission can decide what it wants.
I move we go back to the original motion that receives and files, and then we have a timely fashion as initially presented to the public.
Does Brenda need to finish her?
Well, we can do that.
And then I think I have to have public comment too, John.
Well, I can
jumping our...
well, we jumped it earlier when we changed the agenda. So my motion would be that we go back to the initial motion as presented to us and proceed as accordingly as we're talking about the topic on the dais.
Just point of clarification, does that take a supermajority?
I'm not sure. No, I think if you're making the motion to have the motion as it was presented, you're basically changing the agenda that was approved on a 3-2 vote, and you can make that motion on without a majority. Again, or excuse me, without a 4-5 vote. If you make the motion to waive the requirement for receive and file, that is when you do need 2/3 or 4 or 5 vote.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
You have a motion, you have a second, and just for the commission to understand, if you go back to the original one, the timetable is going to be September 2nd. And if you stay at this timetable, it'll be sooner, and it's just a question of how quickly you want this to act.
So, Mr. Chair, the reason that I agreed with Commissioner Strand with the first vote as well is this is a very important thing and we shouldn't rush it. That's my only thing. I also agree with you that a lot of people are concerned about and want us to address the issue, but I still believe we should take time to go through it. I guess I just wanted you to know the reason behind my vote. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Strand.
And I don't want to be turned into an opposition to this right now because of process and timing. You know, I'd like to support the process going forward as the community was told it would look like, you know, and as we were told at noon today, you know, and so that's my thinking. What's one meeting when we're talking people's lives?
Any other comments, discussion on this vote? Roll call vote on this vote.
Strand?
Yes.
Epcorn?
Aye.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Turnberg? Mahoney?
Aye. Brenda, do you want to finish? Or do you have anything else to finish with?
Well, here's your original motion.
Okay. We have two speakers. Elizabeth Cook could be up first, please. Elizabeth Cook would come to this podium, please.
Mayor Mahoney's City Commission. My name is Elizabeth Cook. I am one of the citizens of Fargo who actually currently lives on these streets. So I know how this is like. I've seen the opposition to it. I have seen our side of it. And basically, in my opinion, I don't think that making it illegal to camp on public property is really justifiable, or nor is it right, as every single person in this town is an equal, regardless of title or position in the community. I've been through this a time or two. I know what it's like. I go to the engagement center where we're doing all these things to help people. I'm a client there. I've got friends that are there. I'm one step in the right direction. We're pushing forward towards moving toward housing for us, for our 2 other people in my family. And in my opinion, I just don't think that it is fair to charge people or fine them just to camp somewhere, whether it's for a night or it's 30 days. It doesn't seem right in my heart to just push people who are already at their lowest to continue to be brought down further. I highly disagree with this motion.
Candace Kraft. Candace Kraft, please. You don't look clap. Is Candace here? Close the public hearing. Do I have, I already have a motion and a second. Motion is up here, or no, I'm sorry, John did a recommendation to change the motion. I need a motion. Do I have a motion?
Can I make a comment
Yes, you
on
may.
this? That it's not illegal to be homeless, and no one is saying that. However, you have residents who are fearful for their lives. There was a rape this weekend under the bridge. There have been I cannot even tell you how many emails and phone calls I get of people fearful for their lives to walk on the trails and under the bridge. They've been attacked, they've been accosted, Proposition asked for needles. nakedness, there's defecation into the river. It's unsanitary and it's unsafe. And it's not fair to every other citizen who should also be able to use these trails and enjoy our downtown to have to come across this.
Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
People were signed up for public comment. Jenna, that's our rules. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I have a few comments and questions for Nancy, if that's okay. So the ordinance, I think, is excellent, Nancy. The sixth whereas, where it starts, the title of it is, a municipal code relating to camping on public property. That sixth one veers into the homelessness thing, and I think that's a separate, I wish that could be a separate thing included in the resolutions. To me, that would be my only request, that we keep the ordinance tight and focused on the eliminating camping on public property. That's my request. And so I'm very comfortable with all that. The resolutions, to me, that's a separate thing where we start getting into a lot of different things. And I do think that is the opportunity to be more precise and cover other things. But to me, the ordinance, and maybe you can explain it to me better, but to me, that's the base. And then the resolutions can be added on to that. And if that's my comment. Now I have a couple questions for Nancy, if that's okay. First of all, I'm confused about the $1,000 fine. If you could explain that. You tried to do that at lunch, and if you don't mind, there's a reason behind that, because just from me looking at it, this shouldn't be that high of a fine. We talked about this, that it should be a smaller one, but there are legal reasons. So if you could talk about that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
So first I'll address the whereas. You could make the motion to amend the ordinance as presented to you to delete that whereas, if you so choose. The second comment on the penalty is we have 3 levels of penalty in City of Fargo. It's a non-criminal, an infraction, and a Class B misdemeanor. This is identified as an infraction. So the maximum penalty would be a $1,000 fine. There is no jail time. The reason for an infraction, having worked with the police on this, is to have some enforcement authority in the event that there is required camp removal and the police involvement in doing so. To that, you could make a recommendation as to what fine you feel would be appropriate for the municipal court judge. But if there is a citation for an infraction given, ultimately that discretion is up to $1,000 for the municipal court judge.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I just add one more follow-up? So I appreciate, so to summarize it, there's a technical reason, and it's with law enforcement behind that. So I just wanted people to know that we aren't trying to, because to me, Commissioner Strand and I were talking about this, any fine over $50 is going to be unaffordable to a lot of these people. So that was a concern. Okay, so just one more. We talked at lunch about this. If there is a camp and then there is things that are confiscated, you will give them 2 days. To me, that just seems like a lot of additional work for the police and all that kind of stuff. But same thing, will you explain that to me? There's technical reasons for that as well.
Again, I can speak to this, but there's staff involved that was involved in this recommendation for a notice of removal. That is an opportunity for that individual to come into compliance with that notice of removal, take the items that are there, and remove the camp without having any intervention by city personnel, including police, to remove that camp.
Okay.
Mr. Strand, or Brenda, do you want to comment on the 48 hours?
No.
Okay. Mr. Strand?
Mayor, my concerns about process maybe derailed our conversation we needed to have. I still think that, Brenda, if we could have, for the public's sake, an overview of what it is we're talking about, how will it look? Why are we kind of jumped right to the weeds. And this explanation of why we're doing what we're doing, how it'll look, I think the public needs to hear this narrative, and I do too. Again, but we kind of jumped over that, and we're going to nuance details that, if that's okay, just the broader balcony view of what this proposal will do.
Absolutely. So what we're proposing is, through discussions with leadership and emails that you are all receiving, we talked about paths forward. So we have had multi-staff departments, staff department heads meeting along with parks. We also have to remember that a lot of the parcels are owned by parks and they're owned by city. So there's an intermingling of two ownerships, not right-of-way, but actual park parcels and city parcels. And so one of the discussions we've had is we have a flow chart of how we would like to work with our homeless camps, but we can only go so far. We can do outreach and we're really done. And so to help support us to continue to work with them, to, look at expectations of cleanliness and working with them on size, and then also looking at where are the appropriate locations for the homeless camps. And so right now, especially when they're under our structures, that's where the trails really come in tight. And that's where we're seeing the growth of some of the homeless camps, and then they're infringing upon the trails. So if we can look at a better location and where we can keep some proximity away from the trail. So what we talked about for a little over an hour today was looking at an ordinance that would not allow camping on public property. But with this ordinance, we would have a resolution that would talk about where are we going to look at enforcement. And so what it might look at is step one might be what we've got on there right now is our structures and our and I know we've already I've been talking to the police chief about adding some different areas along to that are critical structures. And so we looked at bridges, water intake, our pump station, our water intake, those types of locations. And so within a footage of those, and then also also looking at keeping a distance away from the trail, and then continue to work on outreach. We do really feel we need to work towards a housing first philosophy. We are working towards that. The leadership has already given us direction to work towards that. It'll take a little bit of time, but we will be back in front of you with our proposal on what we feel we could do for a pilot project on that.
If you might, please explain the housing first and the 10 units and the master leases that are part of these engagement efforts, so we can see where people are trying to go with your focus, if you would, please.
So I'll do my best. Our housing first philosophy, if you really want to see a great presentation, I would go to our YouTube channel and look at City of Fargo informational meetings, because we had one today and Chandler Esslinger had done the presentation. And so what we are looking at is we do have some ARP funds still available because we did not use them all in our winter warming. And so we are looking to put a proposal together that would marry master leases with being able to house a minimum of 10. If we can house a few unhoused together, we might get over 10. So we're looking at about 10 units for that Housing First pilot project. And then with the hopes that we can show success with that and look at trying to find some funding opportunities for those next steps.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Kolpak.
Yeah, I would really encourage citizens to watch today's noon meeting video for a really solid overview of the challenges of putting these recommendations together, the challenge of making it enforceable, and really the central tenet of it being around safety for all, and it's got to be manageable in its rollout. We don't have unlimited resources here with both police and fire. And we have a number of services that would be part of making sure this is successful. Other conversation we had today at that noon meeting was other regional communities have tried different things. And we've learned some lessons along the way from those communities about what worked and what didn't. And I think this task force really put together some solid recommendations based on conversations with those communities around best practices. But I think in the end, it really, really is about safety for all, and finding a solution, and not continuing to define the problem, but really trying to get to root cause to solve this.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Excuse me just a minute. I do believe there was a discussion of an amendment. I see Commissioner Pepcorn.
So if, Mr. Chair, if that's okay, because it's just, there's one group of words here that I'd like to, but I want to follow the rules correctly, Nancy. So can I just, I'll read you the part that concerns me, but if the rest of the commission doesn't agree with me, that's fine too. But how do you want me to, can I just, where it says, whereas the Board of City Commissioners intends to address social, public safety, health hazards, property risks of those experiencing homelessness. So it's talking about homelessness in the paragraph, and I just believe I would like that to be included in the resolutions. That's my only request, that we would move that. The rest of it, I support the ordinance. It's just that paragraph. But if it's number 6, it's on line 15 on the front page of what we received today.
Can you explain what you'd like in place of it, or?
No, I just want that moved to someplace in the resolutions. Am I being vague, Nancy, or is everyone else following me, or you're not following? Can you hand that down? So, Mr.
Ordinance is different than the resolution. She's got a copy of that, right?
Yep.
So I believe what Commissioner Pepcorn is asking about is the 6th whereas.
Yes.
Which the whereas actually isn't part of the ordinance. The ordinance itself, as it's published, is
okay.
The rest of it's starting at enactment.
Okay.
That said, if you do not wish to have that be a statement of the city commission, we could move it to a resolution. I just understood there was a question. It's not part of the ordinance, but it is part of the introduction that's adopted by the city commission.
So thank you, Nancy, for explaining it to me. So sometimes it doesn't soak in right away. So I have no problem. My preference would be to move that into the resolutions. And if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, just to talk to the rest of the commissioners, my philosophy is this is very tight, and it's strictly the topic about camping on public property. And I am very pleased with that. That one paragraph is a little bit off topic. So that's just my only thing. If you want to leave it in, that's fine. The other request is if I can make a motion to approve the ordinance first and then the resolution separate. Is that permitted, Nancy?
So we are just looking at the ordinance today. So we just met today, and so we're working with Park Board to see if they have any comments on the resolution. I'm going to ask for those back in about a week or so, and I'll be reaching out to each of you to see if you have inputs on the resolution. And then we will be continuing to bring an updated draft resolution, and it will be all adopted at the same time at the end.
So because we make this a first reading, you can make any amendments you want. If we take it as it is today, then Brenda will include those. And then what would happen with Commissioner Pepcorn is she would present it with your amendment, and then we could vote up or down your amendment when the final product is done. Would that be okay?
I apologize, Mr. Chair. Sometimes it just doesn't soak in. So, I do realize that this is just the first, and we will all have lots of opportunities for change. So I apologize for trying to do that.
So if we take the ordinance as written today, it'd be okay for first reading.
Mr. Chair, just
Turnberg.
a question to Brenda. Just so it's clear to the public, this ordinance needs to be passed in order to help you push the Housing First initiative and make more progress with that. Is that correct?
So knowing This ordinance is related to the management of the homeless camps while we are working towards the Housing First pilot project. And so what we're trying to do is how do we manage some of the concerns that have been brought to us, the size of camps. So one of the things that was in the expectation is trying to keep those sizes of the camps a little bit smaller, keeping some spacing between the camps, and then also away from that critical infrastructure. And so this is really, how do we work? We want to continue to do outreach. We want to continue to work with getting them the services that is needed. And so how do we do that while we're working towards that housing first philosophy?
Thank you.
That's kind of the point you wanted to make as part of the Housing First resolution. Any other discussion? Commissioner Strand?
Just to clarify, this isn't the first reading. This is the receive and file.
Receive and file. I'm sorry, John.
Thank you. And as we go forward, there's a lot of cities debating this after the Supreme Court ruling. It'd be good for us to keep updated on what others learn and do. We may get some insight from other communities and jurisdictions and other providers of care to the homeless and unhoused populations.
Mr. Chair, can I make one more comment? My last comment on this. The other thing that came up today that I thought was really powerful is there needs to be ongoing monitoring to understand what will success look like. And the way that this is written as an ordinance and then a resolution makes any changes in the future to the resolution much easier than it would be to an ordinance. And it makes it very nimble, and we can be quickly reactive and adjust as we see what works and what may not. So, important point.
Sure, Strand.
Bear with me. We really need to have our other communities stepping up. I know we have Minnesota across the river. I'm still trying to get a sense of what's different over there and how things will look here versus there when there's a river between us. The state needs to step up. West Fargo, I'd be curious what they're doing. This is just more than Fargo. So I want to learn more about others and our neighbors and what they're doing and how they can help us, how we can collaborate and partner on this regional challenge. It's the whole country has this challenge. It's not just Fargo. So if it absent, I don't know what Moorhead, I know they're over there, but I still don't quite have a handle on what's different there, where we're working together, where we're not, if their services are, I just don't know. And it seems so to me really obvious that we have two sides to this river. And I don't know if we're going to have unintended consequences of pushing people to cross the river, or if they've pushed them over here and we don't know it. I just, bear with me.
Yeah, and one of the things we talked about at noon was the differences between Minnesota and North Dakota. And one of the biggest difference I see is that their parks are actually a city department. So when you have a city ordinance, you can enforce those on park property because they are part of the city. We're separated. Parks has ordinance and we have ordinance. So they're able to work differently in Minnesota than we can work here. And so really the goal is how do we find that overarching ordinance that can support whether you're on park or city land?
And finally, John, I want to say Nancy and Brenda have spent a lot of time on this particular issue and are trying to get the best one forward that works for our public. So they're working very hard to have one that's reasonable for people, not penalizing, criminalizing, or having other issues, trying to do what works best for our community. And I think for many community members, it's safety for both parties, for those that are camping and for those people that go along the pass. So if there's no other comments, I'll do a roll call, please.
I just want to make sure. So we talked about amending the ordinance. This is receive and file, so we can amend it before the first reading. I just want to confirm.
That's correct.
Okay. I didn't get an actual confirmation, so I just want to make sure we're in the good.
Yep, no, I made a mistake saying it's not first reading, it's receive and file. Could be amended before the first meeting.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Now can I do a roll call?
Yes, you can.
Kolpak? Aye. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Turnberg?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. We'll take a 5-minute recess and we'll start the budget at 6:30. We'll bring the meeting back to order. Because I have to present commissioners, I got to be like the staff here to you guys today, so. We will now discuss the 2025 preliminary Fargo budget. As we recall, we engaged in a brown bag discussion over a week ago where I laid out the various goals, challenges, and opportunities for a draft budget. Just as I said during the brown bag meeting, the budget is not just my budget, but it's our budget. I had ideas, I didn't have all the answers, and I welcomed your ideas and your solutions. I've listened to your follow-up questions and your concerns. You wanted to see more details on where the spending reductions came from. Today's presentation will address those details with a deeper look at the budgeting process. We as a commission have to find ways to compromise so we can work together to finalize this budget. Compromise is an important part of leadership, and we need to work together. It will take all our patience to reach the goal. I've worked with the budget team to do my best to find a compromise and a solution to bring forward to you today, and I look forward to discussing it. This slide explains the basis for the preliminary budget. In a nutshell, the North Dakota Century Code requires municipalities to prepare a budget every year. Fargo's Home Rule Charter directs the mayor to prepare and present a draft budget to the City Commission. It is then the work of all 5 of us to find a way forward. Here you will see 3 major goals of this year's budget proposal. Number 1, I want our city departments to be able to continue to deliver excellent public services to our residents. That is something we will never skimp on. Number 2, I want the city to continue investing in our team's human capital. It takes high-quality people to provide high-quality services, and in Fargo, we have some of the best. Our city staff are the cornerstone of what we deliver. Number 3, the city must think strategically as we carefully balance our revenues with expenses. I want everyone to understand that our city budget team has methodically gone through our financial statements line by line looking for savings. We have worked hard to scrutinize expenses, work to ensure the assessed fees are covering their associated costs, and look for ways to diversify our revenues. We as a commission have had recent discussion on topics that pertain directly to this proposed budget. In fact, prior to tonight, we've had 6 meetings to discuss the challenges and opportunities before us as this budget was being crafted. As liaison commissioners, you were all invited to individual department budget meetings in June and July, and you can see these meetings summarized on the screen at this time. I and our budget team wanted to ensure you are aware of all the competing priorities that are being balanced as we work to create the 2025 budget. We talked about utility rates. We discussed the challenges surrounding MAT bus financing model, bringing Moorhead into Fargo organization, and how we're currently on an unsustainable path with expenses far outpacing revenues for transit operations. We also have taken part in 3 different discussions in February, May, and June on city employee compensation. The next series of slides address the city's personnel expenses and explains the investments we're making in Team Fargo. As a reminder, personnel costs for Team Fargo account for nearly 75% of the general fund expenditures. We must take care of our people or they will leave and become somebody else's valuable team members, and with them, the experiences and knowledge that we invested in them. Make no mistake about this, the city of Fargo has phenomenal physical infrastructure, but our most valuable asset is our employees, who provide the services to our residents, business, and visitors. Our HR team, along with the consultants, presented options for new salary structure. Work on this project continues with the goal of adopting a compensation philosophy and new salary structure that is market competitive and aligned with budget priorities. We are laser focused on human capital with the objective of accomplishing 4 goals. Number 1, market competitiveness. Number 2, employee retention and satisfaction with pay. Number 3, employment recruitment. And number 4, alignment with our compensation philosophy. We believe a new pay structure will help lower turnover rates among city staff. Those rates are shown in this table. City of Fargo saw its turnover rates jump around the time of the pandemic, and we had not seen a substantial decline to that number. The city's turnover rate is lower than trends we see in other national sectors. However, our goal is to reduce the rate because it takes about 6 months to train a new employee, and the associated training costs of the new employee equate to 6 to 9 months of salary. The budget team's philosophy for the 2025 budget is to prioritize existing Team Fargo's employees' compensation over new general fund positions. With that in mind, the priorities for this proposed budget sets for existing Team Fargo staff are 1, cost of living, COLA, 2, longevity pay, 3, reclassifications, and 4, on-call pay. This table shows the cost of living City Fargo has made since 2019 with the commercial or consumer price index, a key indicator of inflation. As you can see, our COLA has not kept pace with the consumer price index. We recognize this is a difficult time of inflation, with workers faced with high prices for food, fuel, and many other goods and services, as well as the anticipated increase in the employees' health insurance premiums. To ensure that the Team Fargo is adequately compensated, the budget team recommended a 5% COLA in 2025. As I mentioned earlier, the budget team prioritized exceeding staff members over prioritizing existing staff needs over any new hires. In this table, you can see a total of 7 employees were requested in our 2 public safety departments of police and fire. In addition, 28.3 employees in all our other general fund departments included requested positions in the planning department, library, human resources, and information systems. The cost of these employees would have amounted to additional $2.3 million a year. This was a deliberate and difficult decision. We know that our departments are understaffed and that our department heads are continually being asked to take additional duties without the recommended number of staff on board. However, we need to prioritize existing staff over new staff in 2025. Also, Commissioner Strand and Pipcorn, I know you have specifically mentioned your concerns about lack of additional police officers in 2025. We have never, ever seen more officers in the ranks of the Fargo Police Department than we have right now. We have allowed the department to front-load open positions, which has resulted in a near zero vacancy number. I would like to see how the police department is able to maximize efficiencies and effectiveness as it gets its newest class of recruits on the streets, as well as the activation of the traffic safety team this fall, before we look to adding additional officers in the 2026 budget. And possible, the traffic safety teams will be able to generate revenue through tickets. We have also deployed a ton of new technology to make our officers work more streamlined, and we are currently taking part of the pilot project, which will look at making report writing more efficient and automated. We can and will continue to have discussions with police chief and all of you to determine the best way forward in the upcoming years. But for 2025, I believe we have reached the best solution possible given the amount of revenue available. Now I'd like to cover some highlights of the operating expenses impact on the City of Fargo. This pie chart breaks down how the proposed general fund budget would go towards personnel, operating expenses, and capital expenditures. As you can see, salaries and benefits for Team Fargo make up the largest share of the budget, invested at 74%, followed by operating costs of nearly 26%. The small dollar capital expenditures outside of Fund 475 are less than 0.25%. This table is an overview of the 2025 draft budget for the city's general fund expenses. The budget team is proposing a $13.97 million increase in the general fund expenses for 2025 budget compared to 2024, which equates to around 11% in the budget. The budget teams worked very hard, and our department heads were very understanding of the budgeting process in a difficult budget year. And facts matter when we are speaking to the public, especially about their tax dollars and how we are using them. In fact, let's take a deeper look at the roll-up of the funded versus non-funded pieces of the general fund. In the first column on this table, you will see the summarization of a list of various requests by our departments which were funded in the general fund. The second column shows you the funding levels recommended for approval by the budget team. The third column, which amounts to nearly $4 million, illustrates a summation of aspects of the budget which were not ultimately recommended by the budget team for inclusion in the 2025 budget. I'm proud of the finance team for forensically reviewing individually line items in each department to not only minimize budget increases, but also to reduce budgets which had not been historically fully spent. Again, we fielded 35.3 FTEs and no new general fund positions were approved. We also scrubbed operating budgets line by line. Regarding transfers, this includes a new debt service for the 2024 bond, along with the transit deficit issue. And we worked hard on this issue in 2025. And for capital, there was a thorough review of and much discussion on significantly whittled down requests. This shows creativity, restraint, analytic work, and diligence by our staff to assemble this budget. And just to make sure we're all aware, departments did not get everything they asked for. In fact, none of them did. And I need to make sure to set the record straight on that one. Let me be crystal clear, this is not a Santa Claus budget. Commissioner Pipcorn, you were quoted in the forum as saying there are a lot of things you can do to save money. I actually agree with the statement and believe this budget demonstrates restraint in regards to personnel growth and line item budget reductions. However, decisions on ongoing funding opportunities and expense reductions need to be made through thorough analysis and discussion. Questions need to be vetted. What other funding sources are available? Are fees covering the cost of the program or the department? What are the intended and unintended consequences of an expense reduction? What are the service implications? What are their impacts on staff? As was mentioned in the preliminary budget, the budget team has committed to ongoing evaluation of all these factors. This is going to involve all of us. Department leadership in collaboration with budget team and FHAR will continue evaluating the effectiveness and efficiencies within their department. Commissioners will be involved in the process of the quarterly finance meeting and their liaison department assignments. These will all feed into the 2026 budget. So it's anticipated that department leadership will come to us, we'll work with the budget team, we'll have our quarterly meetings, and that will help form next year's budget, which will start this fall. We'll begin to meeting with you as commissioners to try to figure out what are we going to do with our budget. So it's not coming down to 2 months every year that we try to figure this out. The next section of the presentation will cover revenues generated by the City of Fargo. The pie chart outlines general fund revenues in the proposed budget. It's important to note that taxes make up only 33.5% of the pie. The other 66.5% of the city's general fund revenues come from a variety of sources. This sort of diversification puts us in a sound fiscal footing while also helping to minimize the tax burden on the residents. The table on this slide provides a look at the general fund revenues 2025 compared to 2024. You can see there's a $13.4 million increase in revenues. This total revenue figure mirrors a $13.4 million increase in expenses, which brings general fund expense and revenue dollars in balance, giving us a balanced budget. During the bond bank presentation meeting, Commissioner Strand and Pepcorn asked staff to detail the way in which community safety 2 mills were utilized in 2024. The attached slide is intended for use plan of those 2 mills. As a reminder, this was presented to all of us when we approved the final 2024 budget in late 2023. I asked staff to include this in tonight's presentation as a reminder to all of us that we were informed of this last year and approved as presented. Year-to-date spending is approximately 50%, and we anticipate utilizing the full $1.52 million by the end of the year. The 2025 budget continues our commitment in dedicating 2 mills to public safety. This money will allow the Fargo Fire Department to cover incremental costs and fully funding 15 fire positions brought on in mid-2024 and assigned to Fire Station Number 8. These funds will also go towards a major remodel of Fire Station Number 5. And for the Fargo Police Department, these mills will allow them to cover increasing expenses for the 6 grant-funded officers, along with added technology, vehicles, and a phase 2 to integrate the custom-fit ballistic helmets to protect our police officers. Another revenue item is proposed as utility rate increases for water reclamation, water and stormwater services. This increase was discussed by the Commission in the meeting on July 11th. The increase would be about $10 a month to utility customers. This equates to 33 cents a day. This rate increase has been programmed into our utilities' long-range planning and is a result of sound management. Commissioner Pipcorn asked the staff to provide a comparison for $1 a month versus $3 a month increase in the stormwater utility rates. This will generate nearly $2 million in revenue to make a utility self-sufficient resource. Allocating the $3 monthly increase allows this utility to fully bear the cost of various aspects of providing this service, including employee salaries, which were being paid for by Public Works. This also accurately reflects paying for the overhead services associated with this work. To successfully link expenses with associated revenues, we will continue to recommend the additional $3 a month for the stormwater utility. I want to point out the strategies our utilities are using to keep water bills down through our infrastructure sales tax, by leveraging grants and providing regional service to customers outside of Fargo. Even with the proposed rate increase, Fargo's utility costs will continue to be amongst the lowest in the region when you compare us to peer cities. This graph contains Fargo's 2025 proposed rates as compared to other cities' rates in 2024, which are subject to increase as each of those communities looks at their expenses. When we hear from our Fargo residents about their property tax bills, it's important to remember that the city's share of those property tax amounts about two dimes on a dollar, or 20 cents, for service that our residents and businesses have come to expect day in and day out. So I think it's important to put in the perspective that we are engaging in property tax discussion in this area. It's also important to know that property taxes only fund 33% of the city of Fargo's budget. Property taxes alone do not even cover the cost of our public safety departments. In all candor, I need to say that I'm very disappointed that our discussions about 2 mills for the airport seem to take all the oxygen out of this room. We're talking about 3.5% of our total mills, and it has commanded about 90% of the dialogue in this budget. Well, the airport millage is an important issue, so too is our employee compensation philosophy, our needs for our infrastructure and capital, and the best way to future focus our organization for success. That too should be getting discussed and prioritized. I want to reiterate again, in reviewing the airport's financial position with the city's financial team, I have concluded that the airport has the capacity to forego its usual 2 mills for the 2025 budget. The airport has $55 million cash on hand. The 10-year average of net operating revenue is $3.5 million a year. The net operating revenue budget for 2025 is $4.67 million, which is slated to be transferred to savings. Other annual fundings includes non-operating revenue, passenger fees, and federal capital entitlements in 2023 was approximately $9 million. In 2023, the airport's interest income was $1.8 million. That amount alone exceeds the $1.6 million the airport would receive from 2 mills. There's no question the city of Fargo remains committed to the airport. We have provided the airport with 2 mills of funding per year since 1996 for a total of $19.68 million. We have been working side by side with the airport on the parking ramp project and the terminal expansion. The city has guaranteed the airport's $40 million Bank of North Dakota loan for their parking ramp project, a project the city supports as well. In fact, the city will also backstop any additional airport bonds to support this critical infrastructure. We are like a second signer on their mortgage. We are very committed to this project. The city is also committed to ongoing conversations regarding the airport's mill request in future budget years. For those who don't know, Fargo taxpayers are the sole funders of the public mills to the metro-wide Hector Airport. Let me be unequivocally clear. The City Commission will continue to be a strong partner of the airport. The slide on the screen was an option menu we discussed at the last Brown Bag meeting. At that time, I shared our budget team determined we need to find a financial equivalent of 2 additional mills of revenue in some manner to fund this proposed budget. As I mentioned at the time, if we decided to add an additional net mill increase, it equated to about $15.30 per mill average, the average homeowner in Fargo. In reflection of all the various comments received from each of you during our budget meeting, I have worked with the budget team to reach a compromise for the recommended way forward. I have also listened to taxpayers and a variety of people in the community trying to give me advice. So let me start by saying, my opinion regarding the need of the Fargo City Mills to support the airport in 2025 has not changed. I do not believe that a valid case has been made for this revenue in the 2025 year budget. The money from the mills will allow the airport to bank a significant portion of its own operating revenue to go directly into their savings account. This is not how we treat our residents. This is not how we tax our residents. We ask them for what we need for the next operating year, not what we may need potentially in 4 years. However, in trying to work a workable solution for us, I'm presenting this recommendation. Allocating 1 mill for the airport and adding an additional 1 mill to the city of Fargo for net zero change impact. Doing so would allow us to show a very clear and demonstrated financial partnership with the airport for the state and federal agencies, as well as an encouragement to the airport and its staff to more clearly demonstrate the need for the mills in the upcoming year only. This recommendation also includes our budget team finding an additional $400,000 in reductions in operating expenses. When combining those two aspects, this would allow a COLA of 4.5 for employees, which is less than the 5% recommended, and also would keep the total mills 57, the same as the previous year, to ensure our residents are seeing a net zero mill impact on the 2025 budget. Let me be very clear. We are reducing the COLA, which I believe our employees deserve and is long overdue. We're also reducing operating expenses by $400,000, which would have positively impacted our services to our residents. This results in the airport receiving over $800,000 via the 1 mill I am proposing. The city is making sacrifices to fund this airport, and I want that to be heard and understood. This is a summation table of the last 12 years' history of our property tax mills in addition to revised recommendation for the 2025 budget. As I mentioned, the 2025 budget presented would have a net zero impact on residents' property tax mill levy. I want to take a moment to thank our budget team for working closely with me to compile this recommended budget. I also want to thank each of you as commissioners. I value your input in finding dynamic ways to balance the budget while being considerate of our residents and the financial impact of decisions that might have on them. Ultimately, this is our community's budget. We will continue to help guide the City of Fargo as we remain steadfast in the commitment for delivering excellent investing Team Fargo and strategically balancing revenues with expenses. Now I want to take a moment to emphasize the strong investment the City of Fargo has made in public safety in recent years. I've had a lot of discussion about this lately, want us to address it. This table shows how much more we are spending on our police and fire departments in this 2025 budget compared to 2013. Police department spending has nearly doubled. The fire department spending has more than doubled. You can see that public safety funding is far outpacing the general fund's growth. This slide shows personnel and operating expenses only. The city has also made significant capital investments in our police and fire department. We sent $2.67 million for initial cost of body-worn cameras for our police officers. We spent $14.3 million on a new police headquarters and upgrade of the building's HVAC. In the fire department, we have spent $8.5 million to build a new fire station number 8 to serve South Fargo for neighborhoods and better distribute calls for service across the station. We're putting an additional $2.5 million towards a major remodel of fire station number 5. I think there were some questions of how much we put into safety, and I think this clearly answers that becomes a very much big part of your budget. And I think the citizens expect that. The budget calendar is listed here. Tonight is the night to set the mill levies. We have till September 30th to finalize the number. As a reminder, we're setting the caps tonight for 2 categories of mills we're responsible for. The mills for the city of Fargo and the mills for the airport. Once those caps or maximums are set for each of these 2 categories, we cannot raise them, but we can lower them. My suggested motion is on the screen. I'll come back up to my seat up here. I would open it up for questions. I would ask you, is there a motion to approve the suggested motion?
I will make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. At least we have to have a discussion here. We remind the commission if we don't come up with a preliminary budget, we're going to be meeting all week to find a preliminary budget. And I'm more willing, if you have different changes you'd like to see here, that's welcome. I think Commissioner Strand, at one time you wanted to go up 2 mills, and I'm trying to, you also brought up in that conversation what are we doing for our people that are in fixed income. So that's why I'm trying to keep away from raising 2 mills. But I mean, I'm trying to respect what you said in that regards. Commissioner Pepcorn, you wanted to do a lot of expenses, and we'll continue to look at expenses. So, Commissioner Pepcorn.
So, Mr. Chair, so I don't support your budget. I don't support increasing our budget 11%. There's been no attempts to reduce spending in a lot of departments. To give you an example, Matt Buss, our ridership is down. Then you need to reduce the staff and the hours because the ridership is down. We have communications department that's bloated and it's wasteful. DEI, actually I requested our city administrator and our city finance, how much would we save if we eliminated DEI? They didn't do it. I asked them, how much would it cost if we eliminated the Downtown Engagement Center? They didn't do it. Imagine how surprised I am. And I wasn't asking them for a favor. I'm the finance liaison. I asked them to do it. They didn't do it. So when you talk about Team Fargo and doing the budget, it's city employees and you. It's not us. So when you come here and say, well, we've been working on this, it's the city employees. And so to me, this is unacceptable. And then on top of that, this recommended compensation package, it was made by the employees. I've owned a business and operated a business for a long time. I never have of course my employees want to make more. That's who literally came forward with that suggestion, and that's what we're voting on. That's ridiculous. Where are the taxpayers? Where's their consideration in this? There isn't. 11% increase in our budget. It's $13 million. It should be 0. Are the people on fixed incomes, when you raise their property taxes, where does the money come from? They can't just say, oh, we've decided to increase, my taxes have increased. They're on a fixed limited budget. So anyway, that's my comments. But to say this is a team effort, it's the city employees and you. That's not a team effort. And it was very indicative. You just sat up there for a half hour and preached to us. That's ridiculous. So I do not support the budget. I want to see some cuts. Every department, there's places you can cut. There's no effort to reduce in one department. That's pathetic. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments? Mr. Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. Could I ask the police chief to come to the microphone, please?
Sure.
Chief, if you would. Is this your fourth or fifth year?
4 years in October,
And this is your fourth or fifth budget cycle?
so it'll be our fifth budget cycle.
Help me remind myself, how many new officers have you received in those years net?
Additional new FTE sworn officers? One,
In your entire term?
correct.
And how many would you, in theory, what would be the ideal number right now? I'm sorry I'm putting you on the spot, but if you had your needs met according to what your best judgment is for your department, how many new FTEs would you be needing now?
Well, we put a proposal together, had some experts in to do our staff study and our facility management plan. And looking at state and federal, it's 2 per 1,000, which is a lot. We came in at trying to get to 1.6, which would be currently about, and I have to recheck, about 18 more positions, sworn positions.
My last inquiry, Chief, is help me understand the future of our academies and the feeder system for new officers in light of where we're looking at a proposal right now for a budget of no officers.
Well, we have robustly built our numbers up to the point where we only have 3 vacancies right now. If we aren't allotted additional spots, we can't run an academy for 3 people. It wouldn't be cost effective, a lot of personnel involved. So potentially we would start to incur more vacancies until another academy came up.
Anybody else?
Yep, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Kolpak.
So I know that we did look hard at staff and where we are as far as salaries by department. And that data demonstrated that the city of Fargo is behind in pay structure across the board in all departments, including fire and police. But we also had limited resource to address the recommendation, which I know we're still looking at, and hopefully we come back with some kind of mitigation plan for that over time. But when 76% of the general fund is staff, and the city of Fargo continues to grow, and there were 35 plus recommendations for additions which were not considered because of revenue shortfalls, as well as cuts made in every department where cuts could be. What we're dealing with here are escalating technology fees and costs that came from decisions made years ago that continue to increase, that are real. The transit issue is a big $3.5 million hit because of our status change. And yes, I know they have looked at route cuts and services needed, but there's an expectation level there too. I don't know where we landed on a couple of the positions. I know that there was even a more costly recommendation to incorporate those employees into Team Fargo that is not going to happen as part of this budgeting decision. But every year we also say that we support Team Fargo as our #1 priority and asset, and we're behind, and that's $8.7 million of the increase, along with the $3.5 million in transit. A couple other points I want to make. The transit monies, we're working with federal and state and legislatively, hopefully, to find some information and some additional funds there. I know that we're being very aggressive in our health department right now, looking at how can we think about delivering services differently, and over the next year expect to see additional efficiencies there. And lastly, what still seems to be missing, in my opinion, is the longer-term strategic planning for our capital investments and needs. And in my portfolio, that includes fire. And they have a training center that is falling down. They've propped it up for now, but that's coming in the next couple of years. A fire truck costs $1 million. They have station number 5, which I know is in the budget to repair, and station number 8 opening. But those capital expenses, along with the technology to support our public safety departments, are real. And we need to have a long-term strategic plan. And I know Chief Dirksen did bring a proposal to look at a long-term capital strategy and has done some initial work there, but that's very real and coming as well. So yes, these are difficult decisions. But we are behind in paying the people who deliver the services to the citizens of Fargo. And in the end, what we're looking for is a net 0 mil increase as part of this budgeting work. And so those are my comments.
Mr. Turnberg.
Well, I think that we hit net zero with this budget says a lot. So if we can approve that, we can't tax people anymore, but we can still make cuts.
Yes.
So there's still work to do. I think we can maybe dig in and have a better plan moving forward, but at least we're not raising taxes for this budget cycle. And I think that's what I overwhelmingly hear from people is they don't want their taxes going up. They have a level of expectation from people expect to be safe. So they expect their fire, they expect their police, they expect water to come out of the faucet, and they expect the streets to be drivable. And beyond that, there's other things we can do to cut, but those things we're addressing. Maybe we have more work to do, increasing what we're paying, like Commissioner Kolpak said, for capital down in the future. But at least we're not raising taxes this budget cycle, and I'm happy with that.
And basically, contrary to Commissioner Pepcorn, you all have, commissioners have any reason to come in with your liaison, what you think you can cut taxes, cut budget, cut services, whatever you want to do. I believe Commissioner Pepcorn, some of your suggestions were made to staff, and I believe they were addressed, but I'm sorry you didn't have the conversation with them in regards to that. We'll continue to look over the next month for other areas in which we can do any kind of expense cut. And Commissioner Strand, to your concern, we also try to see what we can do in the police area. Chief and I have gone back and forth on this, and it's a revenue issue. Police officer is about $100,000 plus equipment, so we have to find that. Now, and John, your challenge with transit, just exactly $3.5 billion, we're into it. And I want to compliment Commissioner Strand because we were on the phone today trying to find federal money. So we're trying to find revenue where we can find revenue and move forward. This again is preliminary budget. Final budget is not done, but we would not go higher than this. And that just sets it to your point, is that it's no increased net mill levy to our residents. And I think that's what we want. Any other, Commissioner Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. We're not done. Obviously, we have a little bit of time before this all is finalized, and I'm glad we're communicating as we are. In my head, we really are challenged with increasing revenues and decreasing costs, and we are in a growing community with growing needs. One topic I'd like to have us vet into the future, it would be our sales tax formula. I sincerely would like to know if there is an opportunity, and if so, how. A lot of people don't know we have caps on our sales taxes. So you pay $50 and that's it. So if you buy a luxury item, you don't pay those sales taxes that everybody pays on the initial purchase. So I'd like that vetted. I'd like to have us explore whether we can have a vote of the public to eliminate all caps on all sales taxes at the local level, so that we, in my last understanding, that's over $1 million additional revenue per year. And people don't think about it and realize there's people who don't pay the same sales taxes as others do. If you go buy a $100,000 item, you're only paying sales tax on the first $1,250 or whatever that level is. So that's one topic. I think we can look at other ways of revenue. I kiddingly said a few weeks ago, maybe we should start bringing a water bottle in and sell water. We have the best tasting water in the world, but it's happening in Minnesota. We need to look at revenues. And then on the side of pulling in our belts, all right? If this proposal of no new staffing goes forward, I think we should internally focus on what's our core mission? And sometimes we're out there in the fray on our core missions. Some of our boards and commissions really pull our staff off task and take away from their primary jobs to run some of these boards and commissions. And I think our planning department should be planning. And when they're running an arts and culture commission, and when they're running all these various other Native American commissions, and before that, the Human Rights Commission, I think we should look at that. I'm not so sure we shouldn't take a moratorium on non-essential efforts and boards and commissions going at this point. Lastly, with regards to law enforcement, we need more officers. We need more people. We need more people visible to the public. That's my sense of it. The public is demanding and clamoring that we address these public safety issues, and street racing and all that stuff. And we can't do it with fewer people relative to a growing population. So I still challenge us to find a way to get more officers. I think the public is demanding it of us. My sense is the public's appreciating the fire department support and the increased response capability in timeliness so that we're not having more costs when there are fires. And lastly, I stand by the $2 million commitment we made to the airport for the moment.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Turnberg?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
No.
Strand?
No.
Mahoney?
Aye. You have my recommendations for the Human Rights Commission. Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's an easy one to second, guys. Come on. There's no money involved. Moved in second. Roll call vote, please.
Strand?
Yes.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Turnberg?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Liaison assignments. John Strand.
I'm almost 70 years old and I went to my first air show. I was like a kid. And I was attending with a retired hooligan general who happens to be a relative of mine from Fargo. And what a treat that was to be there present and to see that opportunity. I just had no clue what type of an experience that is. And of course, I see the enthusiasm. We see our chairman of the airport authority out there, Jim Capitan, but the enthusiasm and excitement about the expansion of the airport is just prevalent, pervasive everywhere. So that was my little airport gig. I got to go to the air show.
They didn't make you skydive, though, John.
No, they sure didn't. Maybe took a nose plant.
Commissioner Kolpak.
No report.
I have no report. Commissioner Turnberg.
I have an update from the library. I went over and met with the director of the library today. And just a couple bullet points. Library visits are up 13% over 2023, which represents an increase of over 30,000 more visits in 2024 at the end of July. Also, the library program attendance is up 44% over 2023, which represents an increase of over 7,500 more attendees in 2024 through the end of July.
Wow, getting busy over there. Yeah. Commissioner Pepcorn.
No update, Mr. Chair.
We'll then go to item 49 is resident comments. Charles Shaw. And Shaw, I should say, Charlie.
Mayor and the commissioners and the community members, thank you very much for giving this opportunity. And let me start from our kids. We have kids that doesn't have fathers, and these are the kids that we have to be there for them. And if we want to abolish DEI, what we don't know is that budget or no budget, we should also think about the well-being of the kids and how safe the community needs to be. Now, if we want to change the next generation, we need to start from the kids. I have numerous of single parents that call me, and if I can't solve their problem, what I do is just call DI office, which is Terry Hogan. If he cannot also solve it, he knows where to call. So the fact that we want to abolish DEI, Charles, I'm not in support of it, because the leaders in the community are working together with Terry Hogan to make sure these kids become very important citizens in the community. You and I know that when the kids become very important citizens, the community will be safe. And the parents will be so happy. And every parent will be happy to go to work, because if a parent goes to work and he or she don't feel happy that I have wayward kids in the house, I don't think the parent will feel happy to work. So
The fact that Terry Hogan is always busy in the community, communicating with the community members, in collaboration with the leaders in the community. We are not in supporting of abolishing DEI because we are working hard to make sure we help him. If you do that, if you abolish it, it will take us back. So please, we should not think about the money. Even Terry Hogan doesn't have secretary in the office. He don't have certain resources. But he makes sure every week, I have witnessed it, Saturdays, he will go to different places to make sure everything is fine in the community. Thank you very much.
Olivia Fisher.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Olivia, and I'm a Fargo resident. 2 weeks ago, I directed a question to the commissioners, which was, are you ashamed of yourselves for not condemning a genocide? I'm speaking tonight because I think the community deserves to hear the answers I received. Denise said, as horrific as this global conflict has been, she does not have the authority or intelligence to ask other politicians to take action, and that we should stop directing our efforts at the commission. Tim said, and I quote, "You have my proclamation." And Dave simply chose not to respond, despite me reminding him last week. And I was not directing this question at the others, as they did not participate in voting no on the ceasefire resolution. So I would just like to make it very clear that we are not going to go away. You are here to do your job, which is to listen to the community, and you are not making decisions that represent us. Each of you absolutely has the authority and intelligence to bring this up with politicians in positions higher than yours. We all do. We all have the ability to make calls and send emails, which we have been doing. I would also like everyone to know that our taxes are in fact being spent on weaponry for a genocide. Around 11.6 million North Dakotan tax dollars have been spent on military aid for Israel. While the commission may not be directly responsible for the money being sent to Israel, you are all complicit because you are not standing up against these atrocities. It makes me absolutely sick to know that there are people going hungry and living on the streets here in Fargo, yet our money is being used to blow people's limbs off in Gaza. $11.6 million could have gone towards 1,259 public housing units for an entire year. It is harrowing to see the commission approving expansions for entertainment and travel purposes when just a few hours ago they discussed possibly fining unhoused folks $1,000 for sleeping in public. Michelle even asked if we are making it too easy to be homeless in Fargo, as if people are eager to live on the streets. If your focus is truly on safety for all, that starts with an actual plan to house all Fargo residents. They do not deserve to be fined or criminalized for needing a place to sleep in a country that has become incredibly expensive to survive in. The folks who should be criminalized are the ones supporting and committing war crimes every single day. I implore each commission member who is debating finding unhoused folks to think about that while you respond to my next question. How do you live with yourselves? Thank you.
Corey Edgerton.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Corey Edgerton, and I use she, her pronouns. Did you know that this week is World Breastfeeding Week? I'd like to tell you about the importance of breastfeeding. Hunger is inherited and is passed on through generations. Inadequate maternal nutrition throughout pregnancy and breastfeeding can result in stunted growth, weakened immunity, and developmental setbacks in children. Nutrition is the cornerstone of maintaining good health and preventing disease. This is why breast milk is essential, as it provides all the energy and nutrition necessary for a baby's first 6 months of life. But in times of conflict and displacement, breastfeeding becomes very challenging. Families are often cut off from their normal food sources. If a mother isn't getting the right nutrition, then the nutritional quality of her breast milk can be compromised. Israel has been intentionally starving the Palestinian people in Gaza Strip since October. Israel continues to deny and restrict the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza by intercepting deliveries at checkpoints bombing humanitarian convoys, and shooting at civilians seeking humanitarian assistance. Right now, at least 45% of breastfeeding and pregnant women in Gaza are facing hunger and malnutrition of their children. Starving mothers are unable to produce enough milk to breastfeed their babies. Parents arrive at overwhelmed health facilities begging for infant formula. Health workers say they can't offer life-saving treatments to malnourished Gazans because of Israel's bombardment and the siege that has crushed the medical system. One Palestinian mother stated she couldn't find good quality baby formula or clean water to mix it, so she fed her baby powdered feed mixed with rainwater or polluted water from the wells, causing diarrhea for the infant. Imagine watching your baby perish in front of your eyes simply because you can't get them the food that they need. The situation is simply unbearable, unjustifiable, and needs to stop immediately. Gaza needs a ceasefire now.
Wes Philome.
Wes Philome, he, him, his pronouns. I'd like to start by saying long live George Floyd and Onyewe Matchik. At the last police oversight meeting, the wrongful detainment of Faith Dixon was put on display for all in our community to see. It was determined that Officer Poole of the Fargo Police Department went against policy when he put Faith in handcuffs, despite her not being an aggressor or resistant during an event she was trying to help someone being assaulted. Officer Poole was one of the 3 officers involved in the fatal shooting of Shane Netterville, which we fought for months to have independently investigated. He was only given an oral reprimand. Over the last 12 months, there have been at least 4 Black people in our community who have potentially had their civil rights violated after being wrongfully detained by our PD. In January of this year, just days after 2 of those incidents, Fargo PD quietly made significant changes to its policy on detaining citizens without so much as telling anyone. It wasn't until the oversight meeting 7 months later that this was uncovered. Members of the oversight board were outraged. Not only did they have no input, Chief Zabolski didn't even care to notify them. What value does the board have, Mayor? As the liaison to the police department, were you aware of the changes made in January? While doing some research, I found that dating back to 2015, you have echoed that Black lives do matter, but where is the proof? As Faith was in an emotional distress state during the oversight meeting, you grinned and relished in her pain, showing no sympathy at all. Under your leadership, we have found that as far back as data will show, despite making up 10% of this city's population, Black people have consistently made up 20% of traffic stops initiated by Fargo PD. Commissioner Strand, as you continue to advocate for more police, I will continue to remind you of the impact of your words and decisions can have. I'll encourage you to consider Sonia Massey, who was just recently murdered in cold blood. I'd encourage you to consider Michael Wiles, Abinago Kai, and Faith Dixons, members of our community traumatized by Fargo PD. I'd encourage you to consider our BIPOC community. More
There are no other public speakers. We stand adjourned.